Thank you. So, yeah, you see on the title, it's not a Yara tram infrastructure project, as we are newcomers here. I'll go through a few different things that we did within the parent company in France to show you what infrastructure for us is and what we did in the past. First, the role of what we consider as the role of infrastructure, and it's true here. I mean, as we did in France, it's not specific to France. One biggest thing for us is make the city nicer. We think that make the city nicer, make the people want to go everywhere, move easily, goes with decreasing the car. I know sometimes it's difficult for some people to understand here, but decreasing the car for us really helps in making a nice place. It goes also with having a public transport system that is reliable. We'll go through that here. Reliability is important, safety is very important, and in this country even more than in France, safety is very important. But if you want to have an attractive system, you need also connectivity. And depending on the size of the network or the constitution of your city, sharing infrastructure could be a good way to improve that. Amenity, I think we talked about it today, is also very important. And obviously the whole planning issue is important, and we have to integrate public transport from the beginning if we want to go to a system where at the end we don't say, oh, that's too bad. We should have also integrated a bus line, a tram line, or train line. So just we say enhance the city, and it's probably not the day for Vic Road today, because it's once again taking some road space out for cars and giving them to trams here, or at least to public transport. One of the main squares in Bordeaux, so southwest of France, they decided that they wanted that to be much nicer. They removed part of the cars, one lane on each side, and put the tram in the middle. We don't have the water issue that we have here, so we can put grass. It makes it nice, and it also segregates the tracks. You don't have cars going on the tracks. Obviously, with cars, it doesn't help very much. The same in Bordeaux, an old harbor that is not used as a harbor anymore, but that has been used as a big car parking lot. With a lot of traffic lanes. They decided to decrease that and to make it something nice. So in different stages, remove some of the car lanes and put public transport in it, and then decided to remove the car park and make something just nice and where people want to go. And they say the car, they will manage to have them go somewhere else and really work on public transport and pedestrian area, and nice place for people, tourists, a lot of tourists there too. Big wine area, so a lot of tourists. So that are just a few pictures of what has been done in some Keolis network. I'll go through an example of Le Mans tramway project. It's an interesting one because Le Mans is the smallest town in France who has a tram. It's not even 200,000 people. And so when we talked about putting a tram in Le Mans, everybody says, you're totally crazy. There's absolutely no room for a tram in a city like this. Anyway, we said to make it work, we need to be sure that we'll have people in it and that it's going to work well. Obviously, socio-demographic approach, very important. Bring the people, go get the people where they are, bring them where they want to go. To build your route. University, obviously a lot of students, hospital, downtown, and the railway station. And for those who know Le Mans, even if it's a small town, it's kind of known even here for the 24-hour race car. So people tend to know that. But on the track, where there's a 24-hour race car, there's also 24-hour bike, trucks, karting, running, everything, every kind of race is happening on this track. So like every other weekend, you have a big event there. I put just a few pictures there. On the top left is the old square, main square, where there used to be a lot of cars, buses going everywhere, not very friendly. And they said the tram will go in between, we'll remove all the buses, we'll remove all the cars. We just want the tram in the middle and an area for pedestrian. So on the bottom left, you have the concept design of what it was, and any event now takes place there. And so on a very small city, the two right pictures is really every time there's an event, everybody goes there. Trams goes in the middle, which is not really in the concept here. You tend to stop the tram when there's an event somewhere. In France, we don't really care. If you go on the bottom right, that's the 24-hour race pilot parade every year. It's like this for 5 days. And we never had any accident since the tram started in 2007. So it is possible to make something, and with some light shows at the same time, trying to have something that's just nice. Another area where we did some major work with the tram is the train station. But a few bus stops, a parking lot in the middle, train station on the back. We said the tram will come, and we really want this to be a pedestrian area where people would like to come. New facade on the train station, funded almost by the stores, shops, restaurants inside that were put inside the train station. And the idea is really to create in a place a hub with everything. High-speed train, we have that in France. Perhaps you'll have that one day between Melbourne and Sydney, who knows. Tram, city buses, coaches, taxis, and bike hire. The idea is really bring everything that can compete with cars. So taxis, bikes is something we also really want to include when we have those kind of infrastructure projects. It is very important here. Bike gets bigger and bigger, people walking more and more, and so we want to include them when we build a new hub. Smallest town to have a tram network, but also smallest budget in France. The idea was take something that has been working well somewhere else and just, I would say, copy it instead of trying to build something totally new and totally crazy. Obviously, the biggest part is road and tram structure and the rolling stock. This is the main thing. It's also difficult to compare to a city with a city like Melbourne because we built something from nothing. There was no tram network, as we're here. You already have a tram network. We already have a tram network, so it's not obviously the same budget that we need because we don't have to rebuild the whole infrastructure. How was it funded in Le Mans? The government system is not the same than here, but the state gets involved in it, the region gets involved, and then the city gets involved, and the rest of it, because it doesn't cover everything, goes more through a public debt based on the fact that this is going to work, and we really want the project to be successful, to have this public debt as small as possible. So why did they decide to have this transport, this new tram network in the smaller city? First thing, a big political will. The mayor there decided we want a tram and we really think it can work. Also 55 minutes in the fast train from Paris. A lot of people from Paris, they don't want to live in Paris or around Paris because when they live 30 km outside of Paris, they need anyway an hour and a half or 2 hours to drive to Paris, to their work. So a lot of people are going in cities that are less than an hour away by train and live there and go to Paris. And it takes them about the same time, except the cost of living is probably a third of the price than in Paris. So it's a great way of being away and not spending as much time as they will if they were in Paris. even if it's a small city, the way it's built, there's always some congestion, so it's always something that we want to tackle. It's even bigger here, obviously. And the idea is really to fund the project is how do you increase the revenue, and to increase the revenue, that's why the way you structure your network is really important, to be able to go to the different facilities and amenities, to bring as much people as you can everywhere. Increased revenue, so some results, the tram started in November 2007, and so you can see that the patronage really increased the first year when the tram arrived, and still after the second year. So there's a huge increase of patronage, 33% increase. So it was the first year we went to the objective we had for 2010, so that was pretty good. And even more than patronage, 33% increase, the validation, so the real revenue, people getting a ticket or paying their trip, increase even more than the patronage. So people were really happy with the system, reliable system, and even so more people and even paying more. We also, as you see on the top left, decreased the number of cars in the city by almost 30% within the first year and a half. Political will. If we come back here to Melbourne, the context is a little different. Network a little old, I would say. I like the top right picture because if we will remove the tram from the picture, I think we could ask people and they will think that it's an old Eastern European country picture. But no, it's here, it's domain interchange. I mean, one of the biggest interchange in the network, a little old, and with nice new trams on it. Also, the multiple public transport operators is something different because in France, most of the time, there's one operator for all the modes in a city. Lyon is the biggest network in France. It operates not the train, but the tram, the metro, the driverless metro, the buses, everything. And what makes it easier is that Keolis, when we operate a big city like Lyon, Keolis is owned, most of it, by the SNCF, which is the French railway. So the connectivity between train and operator, when it's a Keolis operator, it's even easier. The bottom right picture, I mean, the fact that we share road with other users is something very different. We try not to do that in France at all. And it's something very different that we face here. But even with this context, we still think there's a lot to be done, and we can contribute a lot in making this city very nice. Some example, and Rob Adam talked about that. Borg Street Mall is an example. What's going to happen on Swanston Street is another example. A few things about, and he talked about it this morning, densification along the tram corridors. This can really help, and we can integrate public transport, trams, but also buses, in those to make a nice place to live in. And I put here one example, is the corner of Elizabeth Street and Flinders Street, which is, if you listen to the police statistic, is one of the most dangerous places in Melbourne. I don't know if it's true, but at least that's what they say. There's a little bit of a concept design here of saying, what do we do if we want to remove some of the cars, make that as a pedestrianized area, have the tram in the middle, so a better connection between tram and train, and make something where people want to go. And if people want to go and you have nice stores and you have not as a big concept as you did in Brisbane, but something nice around it, you'll have people, and it will really help for this area to be nice. It's easier for Yaratram here in Melbourne than it is in France, as normally most of the contract are 4 to 5 years. Here we have an 8-year contract with the possibility of 7 years more, depending on the results and the customer satisfaction is a lot. You talked about things like a passenger, and it's really the base of the contract is what passengers are expecting. Are we aligned with that, and are we succeeding? And if everything goes well, we should have this 7-year extension without to have through the process of tendering again. So this is just an example. We've been there for 10 months, obviously, so we didn't implement any big major infrastructure project. We have things in mind that we're working with the state, but we really think that there's room here to implement things like we could have implemented in different networks in France. Gordon?